Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Janine Luby. As you know, each week I generally, try to express or like to express how I know my guest or if I've just been introduced to them because I think it's important that we are out there being curious, getting to know people, building community, strengthening community. Meet someone at a mixer, get their business card, learn a little bit about them. And it's not always about what can I get from this? Can I get a job? Can I get this or that? But just learning about them, keeping that information, tucking it away, and you never know how you can collaborate, help someone else out, and it gets reciprocated. I think that's important. So, my guest this week, I am just meeting today virtually, and she was introduced to me by Connor O'Brien, who is very well known. If you're in Scranton, you know who Connor is. I've known Connor for a very long time. So he must have been seriously probably a teenager because I've known him for a very long time and he's been integral, really crucial in the theater scene in Scranton. He had oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name, but that's how I got to know him. Oh my God, it starts with a V, and he worked with Teresa O'Connor. We're talking 20 years ago. I had the opportunity to do some improv, laughter yoga, because he had the vintage space downtown. Since then, he's done so much, and he's really been crucial with Scranton Fringe. So bringing all kinds of excellent performances here, but also giving local artists the opportunity to share and show their talents of all kinds. So, my guest today, and I'm going to hope that I don't mess up Melanie's name, Melanie Quintine Evan, and she is in the area doing social media for the Scranton Fringe. And Connor said, I think she would make a great person to talk to. She's doing great things for us, and she's got an interesting story. And Melanie, I should say, is from, let's see if I get this right, Wolverhampton, England, and not to be confused with Birmingham, because that's what most people know, but that is not where she is from. So, welcome, Melanie, and thank you for taking time to join me.
Thank you for having me.
So, I was before I hit the record button, I was sharing with Melanie basically my ignorance. I don't know geography. I don't know much about England, but I'm watching shows on Netflix. I'm getting curious. I mean, I have Irish heritage. I actually have English heritage, but I need to learn more. My great grandfather is from England, and my great grandmother is from Ireland. And I'm now watching these shows. I'm more curious. It's a shame that that's what it takes, but if you don't mind, Melanie, you were told me that a lot of people know Birmingham, but they're not as familiar with Wolverhampton. Can you tell me a little bit about where you're from? What was it like, and why there is that kind of? You said that I don't want to say conflict. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but there's definitely you don't say you're from Birmingham when you're from Wolverhampton.
You don't know. They're both in the West Midlands. They're both cities in the West Midlands, and they're very close to one another, which is why Americans I've found in all the years I've been here will know vaguely where Birmingham is, but they'll blank on Wolverhampton. Unless they are football, soccer fans, they might know Wolverhampton because until recently we've been doing well. Um, they're both industrial towns. As I told you before, if you've watched Peaky Blinders, that is, for the most part, set in Birmingham, but it was filmed at the Black Country Museum, which is closer to Wolverhampton. It's a museum that recreates buildings from that era. They've taken down pubs and all kinds of things and rebuilt them there. So it was a pre-built location for them to film at. So it's always been a very industrial city. And there's a lot of pride in both coming from Wolverhampton and coming from Birmingham. So it's more pride in your city. Um,
Mhm.
you know, I am proud to be from Wolverhampton. So.
Yeah. And do they, I should mention too, another show I watched, Ted Lasso, with the, football, or we call it soccer, but there seems to be incredible, serious, intense pride and rivalries, I guess, with sports like that. Is that is that really the case, or is it overdone on for television?
No, it's not overdone at all. You're born into whatever club you support. I support the Wolves, the Wolverhampton Wanderers. And for my lifetime, they have not been stellar. They've had a couple of good years recently, and then with almost 100% leaving the Premier League this year. Um, but it's almost religious, you know, when England advanced in the World Cup, there were national holidays. Um, Take it very seriously. You know, just like Americans, British people love sport. They love soccer, what I call football, what you call soccer, cricket, darts, which isn't a thing here. Um, but yes, football club loyalties are very intense, and the rivalries are very intense.
And so is it, I know, I just want to follow up on the whole idea of like the Birmingham versus Wolverhampton. Is it sports rivalry, or is it more just a sense of pride as in I'm from this town, I'm not from that town?
There's a number of football clubs involved in Birmingham, so it's not based on football clubs. I don't think it is because there's several clubs involved there, not just Wolves and Birmingham City. There's Aston Villa, there's West Bromwich Albion. It's about pride in where you come from. I think most people have some pride in where they come from, but in the West Midlands, certainly growing up for me, and I can still see it with younger relatives that I still have contact with at home. It's a pride in your specific city. Wolverhampton isn't perfect, but it's where I come from, and it doesn't matter how many years I'm away. It's still home. I'll still be from Wolverhampton. My mother's the same. My brother is. My kids have never been there, but they know all about it.
They've never been there. Have they not been curious enough, or is this just something they'll do eventually?
It's something they'll do eventually. They're
Mm,
both been doing schooling, been doing, you know, young adult things. So
hmm.
they'll get to
Yeah.
it eventually.
Yeah. How would you do when you're talking about where you're from? I say similar things about Scranton. Now, I've lived here my whole life, but Scranton has often been the butt of jokes, literally nationally on television through the years. Before The Office, I always joke that I'm OG Scranton before The Office made it kind of cool. But every place I say is home to someone, and Scranton, by all means, has its problems, it has many things to work on, but we do have a lot of talent here. I think a lot of architecture, a lot of things I take pride in. When you look back at where you are from, what are some things that you think of with fondness, like some things that make you proud of where you're from, or is it more of just a feeling of, hard work or community? What is it that you think of that you take pride in?
The community is that we're a very hardworking set of people. Um, that's definitely it. It's a beautiful city. Um, I know that some people who still live there moan that it's not the same as it used to be, but I don't think anyone is. But there's some beautiful buildings there. It's it's hard to say. It's home to me. You know, the football club definitely has a lot to do with it. But it's the feeling. There's wonderful, and we do get made fun of. You mentioned Scranton getting made fun of. Wolverhampton is made fun of all the time and has been for as long as I can remember. The accent is made fun of. The fact that it's boring is made fun of. Um, but that doesn't matter. It's still, like I said, no matter how long I'm away, it's still always going to be home. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And that is similar to Scranton. It's been called like, many people even through the years will say, oh, there's nothing to do. And again, I find that there's so much to do. And I always say, if there's something here that you want to see that's not here, you can always make it happen. I mean, there's nothing stopping you, and if not, if you're really that unhappy, then maybe you need to replant yourself somewhere. Like that's my take anyway. But what is it that brought you to I don't know if you want to tell me what brought you to the United States or what brought you to Scranton, or where did you come specifically to Scranton?
No, Scranton is recent. My parents came first, my mum and my stepdad. Um, I stayed back for a couple of years because I wanted to finish what I was doing. I had an apprenticeship with a graphics and sign writing company, and I wanted to finish that. And I wasn't that keen to come to America. But a couple of years afterwards, I did come. They lived in New York City. I started out in New York City. I worked for an ad agency on Madison Avenue. I was one of the youngest copywriters for an really well-known advertising agency. But it was an odd time in New York, and if you were a person coming from Wolverhampton, however savvy you thought you weren't ready for that era of New York City. You weren't ready to find out that the boss that you thought was so cool and admirable was not. It was a time there was a lot of drugs, there was a lot of, and that was the attitude. And that's actually what one of my supervisors told me, because I would pull shocked Pikachu faces at seeing them in the bathrooms and things. And she would say, "Well, if you can't get on board with that, you're not going to last in this industry." And I didn't last in this industry. But I love to write, but I got away from it when my son was born because I was a single parent and I needed to make money. So I waitressed and I worked for years as a scheduler for a fantastic group of surgeons. But then the internet, and we moved from New York to Pennsylvania to Lake Wallenpaupack because I wanted better schools for the kids, and I'd been told that Lake Wallenpaupack was as good as it got. They both did good there, so that worked. Um, but in doing that, I was able to start working online. And when I first came to America, I used to do temp jobs because I was actually too young for most people to hire me. But there was one temp agency that would hire me and send me out. And they sent me out to the NBA Players, which is the NBA Players Union's office. And at the time, I knew nothing about basketball. And there was a very good friend of mine, and I'd come home from work and I'd tell him that I'd met these people, and I didn't know who they were. I'd just say, "Oh, he's a nice man." And my poor friend would be hitting his head against the wall, like, "How do you not know who that was? Why are you?" So that started my interest in the NBA. And then years later, when I was looking for, work I could do remotely, I got back in touch with somebody from the NBA Players, and he put me onto a writing opportunity for an NBA team. And that was 15 seasons ago, and I'm still doing it.
Oh, wow. That's
But
amazing.
it's evolved over time. When I started out, we did a lot of writing, we did a lot of traditional journalism, and it's moved away from, and now it's all social media. It's just the way it's gone. And so that's what most of my work has become, social media. I still write blogs for some people. I still do some traditional writing, but for the most part, it's social media. And that's how I came to be involved with Scranton Fringe.
Hmm. Before we get into the Scranton Fringe part, let me ask you about the writing. So, do you find that you miss I mean everything is social media now, but do you find that well, as long as I guess you make time for both, they are different forms of writing. What are some of the, I guess, challenges, I would say, as someone who really enjoys writing? Do you find challenges writing for social media?
Um, Not really, because I like everything I've done for the past 15, 16 years. Most of it's been ghostwriting.
Hmm.
And I still blog for clients I've been with for a very long time. There's a large church in Georgia that I've been blogging for almost as long as I've worked with basketball. I work with a wonderful couple of realtors in Kitchener, Ontario. I work with a very talented home organizer in Houston.
Hmm.
I work with a textile industry group. So I've had to learn how to adapt myself to their voices because I'm not writing as myself, I'm writing as them or for them. It's the same thing in basketball. I'm not, I'm not front facing. Everything I do is the Knicks.
Hmm.
So that can be a challenge. I can't be myself. But one of the things I do enjoy is adapting voices.
Hmm.
So obviously, what I do on social media for the Knicks is very different to what I do for Fringe, to what I do for my real estate people, and that's something I really enjoy.
Hmm. See, I don't know that I don't think I could enjoy that because I think I maybe because I don't adapt easily as easily as other people because I feel like that would be a challenge. But I guess you have to understand you have to you have to get to understand their voice and what they want and obviously if you're doing a good job then they're happy.
Yes, and so some clients have more rules to follow than others. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's just it interests me, and I do still get to write blogs for some people, and then I write my own when I have 2 seconds. That's kind of rare. And like every writer in the world, I have a half-finished novel that I finish 700 years from now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something a lot of writers have, right? It's sitting in the drawer somewhere or on a laptop somewhere.
Yeah, I have versions of it. My gosh, since I was a teenager.
Oh wow.
Um, I will eventually get to it.
Do you find that if you were to sit down today and look at it, you would want to change what it's about, or I don't because I don't know. With so many years passing, obviously you've changed.
I change, but no, I have. It's a matter. There's a poet. My grandfather was from Bristol, which is further down south in England, and there was a poet from Bristol. He's well known in Bristol. He's well known if you are a certain type of person into English poetry, Thomas Chatterton. And he was a very tragic figure because he committed suicide when he was very young,
Hmm.
because everything was going wrong. It's a very famous in England painting. And I was so obsessed with this guy when I was younger that when the painting was stolen from Birmingham Art Gallery, some people genuinely wondered if it was me. uh, so my story about him hasn't changed, but finding the time to finish, that's never been a thing. I don't know
Yeah.
when it'll be a thing. Like most writers, it's sitting there and it's something that will maybe get finished one day.
Yeah, 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 you got time. Yeah. Let me ask you, and again, I want to talk about the fringe and what's going on there, but I want to ask you first how you've enjoyed living in America and if you find any challenges now. I mean, honestly, as an American, it's a challenging time, but how has it been living here? Do you ever, or did you come here so young that now you're just kind of like, yeah, this is pretty much home or second home?
No, it's not. Being very frank, no, it's not. Um, I don't know at this point how much longer I'll stay. Um, there's certain things about America I like a lot. I like the sports. Not a huge fan of the food, never have been. Some of the people are amazing. People are not so amazing. And there's a lot of things I like, but I don't think there's that much other than people I would miss. And there's a lot I miss about home. And I've been all over the place. I've lived in Texas. I've lived in New York. I lived. You're from Scranton, you know. Lake Wallenpaupack isn't that far away, but
Mm,
sometimes it feels like it's a world away. The different altitude, not so much for me, but for my partner who is Dominican. The difference in attitude between the way he's treated in Lake Wallenpaupack and the way he's treated in Scranton is so big for something that's 40 miles apart.
mm,
And America's more challenging to live in at the moment.
yeah.
And I see it from a side that most people in America don't. I'm seeing how much Americans are now disliked. It's not Trump, it's Americans, which is very unfortunate because so many Americans are not on board with what's going on. But just like there were so many people in Germany who were never on board with it, it's difficult for people outside to separate it. In England, what had been a very popular prime minister, Boris Johnson, lost his job essentially because he had a party. Something that small, but it was big enough to the British people. And he's gone now. He's gone back to being a journalist for the Daily Mail.
Mm,
And yet you have what's going on in the United States right now, and people outside just can't understand how it's possible. My friends back home, I still talk to my friends from as far back as primary school. So
wow.
they can't understand how this is allowed to happen.
Yeah.
But Scranton, I like. Scranton, I have found I like it. And that's what was cool about meeting Connor and starting to work with Fringe because I always work with people who are far away from where I am. And this is working in the community and actually, physically working with people. Um,
Hmm.
that's that's one of the big draws of working with Scranton Fringe. So I certainly still like America, but I don't think it'll ever be home.
Mm, yeah. Believe me, I understand as someone who doesn't agree with what's happening. And, I've been to my number of, protests and called my, legislators. It is hard for me many days, well, many of us who disagree with what's going on to think, how in the world is this still happening? Like, it's like waking up to like a nightmare and like, who's going to pull the plug on this? So, yeah, I completely understand. And I can understand how folks, I have a good friend in France who, will email back and forth. We haven't seen each other, unfortunately, in over 10 years, but she's just, she just thinks of us and, she's surprised that this is going on too. It's like, wow. Yeah. Yeah. but we hope for the best, or I don't know, I don't know what's going to take to change things, but it is important for things like the fringe. I think art is so important and it can play a role for people to feel like they have some power or some voice and express themselves. Do you feel that way?
Absolutely. And I think theatre's always been important. It's always been important to me. I did all the child things. I was in plays, I was in musicals, I sang, I danced like most little British kids. I did ballet tap and acro, and excuse me, I sang and I danced. I got away from it. I have friends who are in British theatre. Um, but I think something like Fringe is so important because it does go out of its way to embrace people who are different. Um, at a time when those voices, people want them silenced, you know, and it's not going to happen. And the more there's things like Fringe, the more we can try and make sure that happens. And it also gives you hope that not everybody's the same. If you ask some people who haven't been to Scranton, they would tell you that Scranton is very MAGA and very intolerant, but they haven't been here. Fringe a couple of weeks ago helped host a burlesque drag show, and it was sold out. And during Scranton Fringe last year, the sip and paint with drag queens that had lines down the block. Um, and there's so much acceptance with the Fringe audiences I found last year. Last year was my first working with the Annual Fringe Festival. People from all different walks of life, not just young hipster people, but there were a lot of older people and a lot of people you wouldn't expect to see, and just out enjoying a show. And the other thing I was discussing with a friend this morning, AI.
Mm.
There's a story going around that Val Kilmer's family have given permission for his likeness to be recreated by generative AI for a
I
whole
just heard
film.
that yesterday. Yes.
And that sets such a terrible precedent for the movie industry, because now if a family of a dead star is into the idea of making money, or if they're, say, Marilyn Monroe and there's nobody to protect her interests, you're going to have the market flooded with all these insane movies where, for example, you take Marilyn Monroe and you shove her into 2026, or and it'll be awful. So I think those of us who prefer our art to be human need the theatre even more so. You can't do anything AI with theatre. I don't even think you could get away with AI scripts in theatre, because most people are starting to understand what AI scripts sound like now. So it's even more important. If you want to see something real, you're going to have to go to the theatre, and you're going to have to. It's just, and there's so much different things. We're looking at applications right now for this year, and there's so much diversity and something for everybody. You know, it's really cool. It
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah. And for
And
folks listening to, I'm sorry not to interrupt you. I was going to say, for folks listening, The Fringe, if you're not familiar, check it out online. I believe it originally started in Scotland. Is that right? The origination?
it did. The first one was the Edinburgh Fringe.
Okay. And now it's pretty much, I mean, I guess you could find it probably all over the country. I know Scranton's been doing it for quite some time. I had a one woman show in it, gosh, maybe 10 years ago. I'll have to find my program booklet, but it's been going around excuse me, for a long time. And here in Scranton, you can see it usually in the end of September. There are shows throughout the whole city. You've got music, you've got poetry, you've got comedy, you've got theater, you've got visual things. It's just, as Melanie said, a very diverse, eclectic kind of experience. But wherever you live, check out and see if you have a fringe near you because it's something really important to support.
It is, yes. Um, this year, our Fringe, Scranton Fringe, is the first 2 weeks of October. It's the first through the 10th, I believe.
Okay. Okay.
That
And
nice
you're,
fall part.
what's that?
Sort of hopefully we'll get nice fall weather.
Yeah.
Last year, 2025, the weather was beautiful both weeks.
Yeah. I went to see the light show they did at Marywood's campus. That was pretty cool. And it was beautiful just sitting out watching it.
It was, yeah. And when they did the importance of being earnest, sitting in the park, it was like summer.
Mm,
We
yeah.
got lucky with the weather last year, but even if the weather's bad, there's still, a lot to do.
And are the applications, I want to say is the deadline, I think it's passed, or is it still out there? I know it was coming up, approaching.
No, the applications are still open. They're going to be for a little while longer. You can check our social media, which I manage, of course, to for all the information. So at the moment, we're still accepting applications, still at the very, very start of reviewing them. So there's still
Excellent.
anybody wants to get in on it. There's still lots of time. So
Yeah. So tell me, as we start to wrap up, just tell me a little bit. I mean, I know it's kind of a silly question. Like, obviously, most of us know what social media is, but you've been handling all the social media for Scranton Fringe. What are some of your favorite things that you've been featuring, like that you've been doing with it?
I I mean, I enjoy it as a whole because I don't have to pretend I'm not me. I'm kind of always made it very clear who's in charge of the social media since I took it. I post as Scranton Fringe, but it's like I have a space on the website, I have a bio. I'm teaching a course uh, next month for any performers, but specifically for um, people considering fringe because social media is very difficult if you are a performing artist. It takes up a lot of time. Not only is it time consuming, it's difficult to figure out. You have to understand that most people think social media is it's sort of a soapbox and you stand and you shout, this is where my show is, this is what we're doing, now buy tickets, and that's not effective at all. So I'm actually teaching a course for Scranton Fringe in a couple of weeks for artists. But to me, social media, it keeps changing all the time what it is. It's not just Facebook and Instagram. Um, for Fringe, I go out to LinkedIn because, there are more serious artists out there sometimes who spend more time on LinkedIn. Some of the other social media channels are not any longer very friendly to the kind of content we have coming out of Scranton Fringe. Former Twitter, X now, is not particularly friendly towards alternative points of view or the kinds of theatre we put on. TikTok is a very strange place and it's getting stranger. Um, we work whatever we're doing, and social media is just a way to reach people in a different way. I really enjoyed actually during the festival last year. I was running around Scranton, running between the different venues, didn't bother driving because the parking wasn't going to work. So I was running up and down the different venues and just talking to the artists, talking to the audiences. I got to know A couple of the artists from last year I'm still in touch with. I've really enjoyed that physical aspect of it that I don't necessarily get with other clients. Um, so to me, the social media is a way for us to, you know, better connect with the people we hope will come and see the shows.
Yeah. And when is do you know the date offhand? Otherwise I can look it up and post it when I post this podcast for your what you're doing, the training or the program.
It starts the first Wednesday in April and run for 4 weeks.
Oh,
It's
okay.
based on Zoom and it'll come with workbooks and lessons and homework. It's, you know, hopefully going to leave all the participants with blueprints to, make their own social media presences more effective. Um, the idea is that it's provides value. That's what I want to do. I want to, performing artists don't have the time to sink hours and hours into social media. So I've developed ways for other populations to streamline their social media and get the most out of it. So that's what I want to teach in this course. And, how to make the most of it, not just to sell tickets, but to brand yourself.
Yeah.
That's
It can be challenging, that's for sure, as someone with the podcast and I do stand-up comedy. I don't do a ton of it, but I do, maybe 10, 12 shows a year. I often feel like I'm screaming into a void, and I'll admit I don't take time to like read up on what's the latest and what should I be doing differently. And but like you said earlier, it's not just like standing on a soapbox and screaming, come to my show, which I probably make that mistake often. And I feel like, how do I reach people? And I will admit it's challenge. I feel it's challenging.
right. So that's what I want to address. Speaking to people, performers last year, I met a couple of performers who I asked them, but why haven't you done any social media? Oh, well, I haven't had time. Oh, I didn't know what to do. And then there are a couple of performers that I put stuff out on to try and, help out. And so I that's where I got the idea that there was an issue here as well. I already knew there was in other communities, but specifically for, you know, people who don't have a budget to pay for endless Facebook ads that may or may not work, or pay for Google ads or do that, And there are things that can be done without having to do that, or without having to put hundreds of dollars into software. I want to be able with this course to show people the free resources they can use to keep going, and ways that will not bankrupt them in order to promote what they're doing, because that's important. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'll be doing, and covering everything we've got going with Fringe coming up this summer.
Yeah. That's exciting. Let me just ask you one more question. It kind of just ties back to, you mentioned AI with, Val Kilmer, and I just heard that. What do you think about AI in social media? Because I feel like it's kind of being force fed to us, but I'm kind of myself personally, I'm resisting it, but I feel like I might be dragged into it because it's kind of going to be the way, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think AI will eventually destroy social media because there's
Mm,
so much. Because I spend, 7 days a week writing and communicating with people, I also work as a freelancer with a couple of digital agencies who do SEO, search engine optimization. So I'm very used to what AI writing sounds like and what AI imagery looks like. And but not everybody is. Um, but you have these long posts that are, to me, obviously AI that people are getting pulled in by, and they're having conversations with these robots. And that's how a lot of the MAGA thing started, but it's worse than it was 8 years ago. You know, I see so many people in my own industry posting, this is not AI, this is not satire, because it's getting so hard to tell.
Mm.
And some people are very resistant to it. I also work with musicians, indie musicians, and one group that's a little bit bigger than the artists I work with. They used AI, and the backlash against them was huge. You know, and in a way, it was a shame because they're a talented group, but they got lazy and they used AI.
Mm.
And I think it is easy to fall into. And I know certain people with certain agencies are like, oh, well, just have AI write all your social media. But AI doesn't, it, it's not for some things, but it doesn't have a personality. And it's not quite as smart as some people think. There was an example somebody put up on Reddit last week. I spend a lot of time with myself for myself. Um, they asked ChatGPT, I need to wash my car, but the car wash is only 50 feet from the house. So should I just leave my car and walk? And the stupid thing was that ChatGPT gave him these like 7 paragraphs of yes, why he should leave his car at home and walk to the car wash because it's healthier for him and all this crap. And they said it with such confidence. I mean, to be fair to Anthropic, he then put the same question to Claude. And Claude just said to him, well, how are you going to wash the car if you leave it at home? But, you know, it doesn't have another example. I was working with a client of mine and we're doing some research with AI glasses.
Mm.
And we were comparing the two different, we were comparing two different AIs. And one of them was insisting that a video game that I physically had in my hands at the time did not exist, was months away. And I kept, responding, no, it came out this date and this, and it argued with me that I must be wrong. Was I sure I was talking about the right game? And I was like, wow, and people are making actual life decisions based on this crap.
Wow. Yeah. That is definitely a topic. And I've talked about it on here before with one of my friends who's a romance author and how it's being used and how people are being accused of using it and things like that. I think these conversations will continue and I mean, obviously it's not going to go away, but these are the type of conversations that will continue to happen because it's here. Whether it's going to stay, I mean, I don't know. It scares me a little. I'm not going to lie, but yeah, we'll continue having to talk about this or deal with it. I imagine for a long time.
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be as big as people think.
Hmm.
Like, oh, Mark Zuckerberg shutting down his metaverse, which he put so much money into, because nobody was using it. It's not something people were interested in.
Hmm.
Um,
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much for making the time, I should say, sharing your time with me. I appreciate that. And I am a big fan of the Fringe. So, folks in the area, like wherever you live, check out and see if you have Fringe activity. And if you don't support local artists, anyone who's out there performing because they need an audience, as I've said many times to my audiences, if you don't buy tickets and your butts are not in the seats, we have no one to perform to. That's a problem. So, get out there, support local theater. But if you're in Northeast PA, definitely follow Scranton Fringe on social media. And if you're someone who's an artist, maybe consider applying or attending the upcoming program that Melanie's doing on social media so that you can learn some important information and tips. And just follow and make sure you're out there in October to support and check out and enjoy. And let me tell you, they are so diverse. Each theater, each performance is so different from the other. So you could have, you could attend all of them and be really entertained in such different ways. So I think it's really important. So thank you so much, Melanie. Any parting words or anything that you would want to share that, I just didn't ask you about?
I really enjoyed talking with you. Just one more thing. Shout out to Connor because his show, which he debuted at Scranton Fringe last year, is going to Edinburgh, and I'm talking about going with him because any excuse to go home is good for me. So
That's awesome. Now, is that coming up like this summer or when's it going?
he's going to Edinburgh Fringe this year,
Oh, wow. That's phenomenal.
going in August. We just announced that on a couple of days ago.
Okay.
He just got the green light then. And that's just a really good example of how Fringe starts things off. Um, for Edinburgh Fringe, it started so many people off. Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie started there. Phoebe Waller-Bridge started there. Charlie Booker started there. Lots of people. So who knows? It could be really do so. I said to Connor, I'll be able to say I knew him way back.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Well, that's wonderful. Congratulations, Connor. That's awesome. And that you get to go back home. So that'll be nice. Enjoy that.
Yes, yes. It'll be very nice. It's close to home. Only a couple of hours on the train.
Wow. I love how everything is kind of close. And again, I'm obsessed with Dairy Girls and I'm like, and Bridgerton. So I'm listening to all the different accents. It's amazing. And again, my ignorance, because there are different dialects and accents in the United States, but depending, I guess, on where you're from, in what parts of England, and then Scotland, and how very different the accents are. I love listening to them.
But they're hard to understand sometimes. Get
Hmm.
frustrated with Siri sometimes because she doesn't understand what I say. And my Wolverhampton accent isn't that strong anymore. It's, if you ask people from where I live, they'd say I sound like an American.
Everyone's perspective is different, right? Everyone's perception, I should say. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you again so much, Melanie. Again, thank you folks for listening and make sure that you do. I mean, I'm saying really just even if you're not a theater fan, give it a shot once in a while. It's just to learn something new, have a different experience. And, artists do appreciate your support. So, as I say each week, if you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, please reach out to me. If you're interested in supporting the podcast, reach out to me. I have a variety of packages available for sponsorship. And April 13th, I will give one more plug. Well, no, I'll probably do it again. But April 13th, if you're in Scranton or you're coming to Scranton, I am working with Women in Philanthropy of the Scranton Area Foundation. I'm really excited. This is part of my 5-year anniversary. We're doing an event. It's a film screening of Loud Enough Surviving Justice. It is a powerful story about one sexual assault survivor's story of how she and her family sought justice from the legal system when it wasn't helping her. And it's a very empowering story. We're going to have a showing of the film, and the film's director is going to be there, along with a representative from WRC, which is formerly Women's Resource Center, to talk about resources that are available in our area here. So that's April 13th. Reach out to me or follow me, Funny Wine Girl Janine, on Facebook and Instagram. I have a link in there that you can register to attend. It is free to the community. So, as I say each week, I thank you from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my wine glass.